The morning sky over New York burned red as alien ships descended through the clouds. Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her face against the reinforced glass of the United Earth Command Center, watching humanity's worst nightmare become reality. "How many ships?" Admiral Marcus Chen asked behind her, his voice steady despite the chaos filling the command room. 2,000 confirmed, sir. Maybe more hiding behind the moon, Lieutenant Park replied, her fingers flying across holographic displays. "They're positioning themselves over every major city on Earth." Elena turned away from the window. She had work to do. The Terra Nova project had been her life's work for 20 years, built in secret across 12 hidden facilities around the solar system. Today, it would either save humanity or die with Earth. The Zephyrian message had arrived 3 days ago. Their translation computers had worked overtime to decode it, but the meaning was crystal clear: submit or die. Surrender all resources, become slaves, or watch your world burn. Earth's leaders had tried to negotiate. They offered trade agreements, shared technology, even tribute payments. The Zephyrians had responded by vaporizing the International Space Station as a demonstration of their power. "Elena, we need to go," Admiral Chen said, placing a hand on her shoulder. "The evacuation ships are ready." She nodded, grabbing the data crystal that contained humanity's entire digital heritage. Every book, every song, every scientific discovery, every work of art that had ever been created was compressed into the small device in her hand. It weighed almost nothing, but it carried the soul of human civilization. The elevator ride to the underground launch bay felt like it took forever. Through the thick concrete walls, they could hear the distant thunder of weapons fire. Earth's defense fleet was fighting a hopeless battle in orbit, but they were buying precious time for the evacuation. The launch bay was massive, carved deep into the rock beneath the facility. 20 enormous ships sat waiting, their hulls gleaming silver under the harsh lights. Each ship was 2 kilometers long and designed to carry 50,000 people on a journey that might last centuries. "Status report," Admiral Chen barked as they entered the control room. 18 ships fully loaded and ready for launch, Captain Rodriguez replied. "Ship 19 is at 90% capacity. Ship 20 is having engine problems, but engineering says they'll have it fixed in 30 minutes. "We don't have 30 minutes, Elena said, watching the tactical display. Red dots representing Zephyrian ships were moving closer to Earth's surface. They're beginning their bombardment of military targets. Once they're done with those, they'll start on the cities." Admiral Chen made the hardest decision of his life. "Launch the ready ships now. We'll wait for Ship 20, but no longer than 20 minutes. The first 18 ships lifted off in sequence, their massive engines shaking the entire facility. Elena watched them disappear into the tunnel that led to the surface, carrying nearly 1 million people to safety among the stars. Ship 19 finished loading refugees and launched 15 minutes later. Elena, Admiral Chen, and the remaining command staff waited in the control room, watching as engineers worked frantically on Ship 20's engines. "How many people are still on that ship?" Elena asked. 47,000, Captain Rodriguez answered quietly. The tactical display showed Zephyrian ships moving into bombardment positions above Earth's major cities. They had maybe 10 minutes before the real destruction began. "Got it," Chief Engineer Walsh's voice crackled over the radio. "Engines are online. We can launch anytime." Elena and Admiral Chen ran for the ship. As they strapped into their seats in the command section, Elena felt the massive vessel lift off the ground. The acceleration pressed her back into her chair as they shot up through the launch tunnel toward the surface. They emerged into a world at war. Earth's sky was filled with burning ships and weapon streams. The planet's defense grid was putting up a fierce fight, but the outcome was already decided. There were simply too many enemy ships. "Take us to the rendezvous point," Admiral Chen ordered. "Maximum speed." As Ship 20 accelerated away from Earth, Elena watched her home planet grow smaller in the rear display. She could see flashes of light on the surface as Zephyrian weapons began striking cities. Billions of people were down there, facing death because humanity had refused to become slaves. The 20 evacuation ships met at a point beyond Jupiter's orbit. Admiral Chen opened a communication channel to all vessels. "Captains, this is Admiral Chen. As ranking officer of the Terra Nova fleet, I'm implementing Protocol 7. All ships will separate and take different routes out of the solar system. Your navigation computers have been programmed with safe coordinates in various sectors of the galaxy." Elena activated her own communication channel. "This is Dr. Vasquez. Each ship carries a complete copy of human knowledge and culture. Your mission is to survive, to grow strong, and to remember what was done to Earth today." Admiral Chen's voice became hard as steel. "We are no longer refugees running from a fight. We are the inheritors of humanity's legacy. We carry with us the memory of Earth and the promise of justice. Someday we will return. Someday, we will make them pay for what they've done today." The 20 ships began to separate, each heading in a different direction. Elena watched the other vessels disappear into the darkness between stars, carrying humanity's survivors to unknown worlds. 3 hours later, long-range sensors detected massive energy discharges from Earth's direction. Elena didn't need to see the readings to know what was happening. The Zephyrians were using planet crackers, weapons designed to shatter entire worlds. "Earth is gone," Captain Rodriguez announced quietly. "Long-range sensors show only debris where our planet used to be." Elena closed her eyes and clutched the data crystal containing humanity's heritage. Around her, the ship's crew worked in silence, processing the magnitude of what they had lost. Their world, their history, their home was nothing but floating rocks and dust. But they were alive. 19 other ships carried the survivors of humanity to distant corners of the galaxy. The Zephyrians thought they had won a complete victory, eliminating a potential threat before it could challenge their empire. They were wrong. Admiral Chen activated the ship's internal communication system. "Attention all passengers and crew. Today we lost our world, but we did not lose our humanity. The Zephyrians believe they have defeated us, but they've only made us stronger. We will find new worlds. We will build new homes. We will raise new generations who remember Earth and what was taken from us." Elena opened her eyes and looked at the starfield ahead. Somewhere out there was a planet where they could land and start over. It wouldn't be Earth, but it would be home to their children and grandchildren. "How long until we reach our destination?" she asked Captain Rodriguez. 230 years at current speed," he replied. Elena nodded. She would never see their new world, but her children would, and someday, perhaps centuries in the future, humanity would be strong enough to return to the solar system. They would find the aliens who had destroyed Earth, and they would make them understand that genocide was a mistake that carried a terrible price. The ship continued its journey into the vast darkness between stars, carrying 50,000 survivors toward an uncertain future. Behind them, Earth was gone. Ahead of them lay destiny. The ice planet that would become New Stalingrad was a world of endless winter and howling winds. When the first human ship arrived there 800 years after Earth's destruction, the colonists faced temperatures that could freeze exposed skin in seconds and storms that lasted for months. Captain Sarah Martinez stepped off the landing craft onto the frozen surface, her breath forming instant clouds in the thin atmosphere. The survey team had declared the planet barely habitable, but it was far from Zephyrian space and had mineral deposits they desperately needed. "Welcome to paradise," she muttered, watching her advance team set up the first shelter domes. Within 50 years, New Stalingrad had become humanity's most successful military training world. The brutal conditions forced the colonists to innovate or die. They developed thermal suits that could keep a person warm in absolute zero temperatures. They learned to build cities beneath the ice, connected by tunnel networks that stretched for thousands of kilometers. Most importantly, they learned to fight in conditions that would kill most other species. Human soldiers trained on New Stalingrad could survive anywhere in the galaxy. On the opposite side of human space, the lava world of Vulcan's Forge presented different challenges. The surface temperature was hot enough to melt most metals, and volcanic eruptions were a daily occurrence. The humans who landed there in year 892 had to live in underground caverns and sealed habitats. Dr. James Park, great-grandson of Lieutenant Park who had served on Earth's last day, watched from his laboratory as his team tested their latest creation. The plasma rifle in the testing chamber could cut through solid rock like butter, powered by heat converters that turned the planet's volcanic energy into weapons. "The Zephyrians use energy weapons that require special power cells," he explained to his research team. "Our weapons draw power from any heat source. On this planet, that means unlimited ammunition." The colonists of Vulcan's Forge became master engineers and energy specialists. They built cities that floated above lava flows, powered by geothermal energy that could never run out. Their children grew up in heat that would kill most aliens, developing enhanced resistance that made them nearly immune to fire. In the asteroid fields of the Broken Chain, humanity learned different lessons. The scattered rocks and planetoids offered no breathable atmosphere and little gravity, but they contained vast mineral wealth. The humans who settled there became the galaxy's best miners and void fighters. Commander Lisa Chen Vasquez, descendant of both Admiral Chen and Dr. Vasquez, piloted her mining suit through the asteroid field with graceful precision. Around her, hundreds of other miners worked to extract rare metals that would eventually become starship hulls and weapon components. The asteroid colonies developed zero-gravity fighting techniques that no other species could match. Their warriors could fight equally well in the vacuum of space or the crush of planetary gravity. They built ships that could hide among cosmic debris and strike without warning. But perhaps the most important development happened on the research worlds, hidden deep in nebulae where no alien sensors could detect them. Dr. Elena Vasquez had died centuries ago, but her work lived on through the scientists who continued her research. On Research Station Alpha, built inside a hollowed-out moon, Dr. Michael Torres made the breakthrough that would change everything. He had been working for decades on genetic enhancement technology, trying to help humans adapt to the harsh worlds they now called home. "Computer, run simulation 412, he commanded, watching as holographic displays showed human DNA being modified by carefully designed viruses. The results were remarkable. The enhanced humans could survive in environments that would instantly kill their ancestors. They could process oxygen from nearly any atmosphere, resist radiation that would be fatal to other species, and even survive for short periods in the vacuum of space. More importantly, the enhancements could be passed to their children, creating new generations of humans who were perfectly adapted to any world they might encounter." As the centuries passed, the scattered human colonies maintained contact through quantum communication networks that the Zephyrians couldn't detect or intercept. Each world specialized in different technologies and fighting techniques, but all of them shared the same goal: preparing for the day they would return to avenge Earth. The Terran Covenant formed during this period, a secret organization that spanned all human worlds. Its members included the best scientists, soldiers, and strategists from every colony. They gathered intelligence on the Zephyrian Empire, studied alien technology, and planned for the eventual War of Revenge. Agent David Kim operated deep in Zephyrian space, his genetic modifications allowing him to pass as a member of an alien species that served the Empire. For 20 years, he had worked as a minor bureaucrat in the Zephyrian military administration, carefully gathering information about their defenses and weaknesses. His reports painted a picture of an empire that had grown soft and complacent. The Zephyrians controlled hundreds of worlds, but they relied on fear and superior technology to maintain order. They had not fought a serious war in over 1,000 years. "The slave species outnumber them 50 to 1, he reported during a coded transmission to the Covenant leadership. "Most have forgotten what freedom looks like, but they remember that it existed. If we can show them that the Zephyrians can be defeated, they'll join us." On the industrial world of New Forge, massive factories worked around the clock to produce weapons and starships. The humans there had learned to build equipment that was both more reliable and more powerful than anything the Zephyrians possessed. Chief Engineer Maria Santos watched as the latest battleship rolled out of the construction bay. It looked similar to standard galactic designs from the outside, but every component had been improved by human ingenuity. "The hull uses adaptive armor that gets stronger when hit by energy weapons," she explained to the ship's captain. "The engines can operate at twice normal efficiency without breaking down, and the weapon systems can be modified on the fly to counter any defense." The ship was just one of thousands being built across human space. Each one incorporated lessons learned from centuries of survival on hostile worlds. They were designed by people who understood that failure meant extinction. On the agricultural world of New Eden, geneticists worked to develop food sources that could grow anywhere. If the coming war forced humanity to move again, they would not starve. Self-contained farming systems could be set up on any world within days, producing enough food to feed an army. The children born on these worlds grew up with stories of Earth and the promise of return. They learned to fight before they could walk, studied alien languages and cultures, and trained for the day when they would face humanity's ancient enemy. Captain Jennifer Martinez, great-granddaughter of the original Captain Martinez, stood in the command center of New Stalingrad's military academy. Before her, 1,000 young soldiers practiced combat maneuvers in conditions that would challenge the galaxy's best warriors. "Remember," she called out to them, "we are not training to conquer worlds. We are training to liberate them. Every shot you fire, every battle you fight brings us closer to the day when Earth will be avenged and the galaxy will know freedom." The soldiers cheered, their voices echoing off the ice walls. They had never seen Earth, but they carried its memory in their hearts. Soon, it would be time to return to the stars and show the galaxy what humanity had become during their long exile. The Zephyrians had made one critical mistake when they destroyed Earth. They had left humans alive, and humans never forgot. Commander Zektar of the Zephyrian Intelligence Corps stared at the holographic display showing the 7th mining operation to fail this month. The pattern was becoming impossible to ignore, though his superiors seemed determined to dismiss it as mere coincidence. "Explain to me again how an entire mining platform simply vanishes," he said to the investigation team leader. "The automated systems show normal operation until 347 hours. Then all signals ceased," Officer Velkan replied, his mandibles clicking nervously. "When the patrol ship arrived 6 hours later, they found only empty space. No debris, no distress signals, no trace that the platform ever existed." Zektar studied the tactical display. The missing platforms formed a rough circle around the outer rim of Zephyrian space, each one located in remote systems where help would be hours away. Someone was testing their response times and mapping their defense patterns. "What about the worker settlements on those mining platforms?" he asked. "Gone as well, sir. 3,000 Krillian workers, 50 Zephyrian supervisors, and a full security detail vanished without a trace." That was the detail that worried Zektar most. The Zephyrians had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years by making examples of anyone who opposed them. No rebel group had ever been foolish enough to attack Zephyrian citizens directly, yet someone was making their people disappear with surgical precision. On the mining world of Kepler-7, Supervisor Thaxon noticed that productivity had increased dramatically over the past 6 months. The slave workers seemed more motivated, working harder with fewer complaints. At first he had attributed it to fear after the public execution of several troublemakers, but lately he had begun to notice other changes. Workers who had served loyally for decades were making small mistakes, asking unusual questions, showing interest in areas of the facility they had never cared about before. "Worker designation 7742, he called to a Krillian who was cleaning near the main computer terminal. "You seem to be spending a lot of time in this section." The worker looked up with the typical submissive expression of his species. "Apologies, Supervisor. I was only ensuring the area was properly cleaned." Thaxon studied the alien's face. Something was different about this one, though he couldn't identify what. The features were correct for a Krillian, but there was an intelligence in the eyes that seemed out of place for a slave species. What Thaxon didn't know was that Worker 7742 was actually Captain Chen Rodriguez, a human agent who had undergone genetic modification to perfectly mimic Krillian biology. For 2 years he had worked in the mining facility, gathering intelligence and slowly replacing key workers with other human operatives. The real worker, 7742, was now living safely on New Eden, along with thousands of other rescued slaves who had been quietly evacuated during staged accidents and equipment failures. Captain Rodriguez had memorized every detail of the facility's defenses, communication systems, and production schedules. More importantly, he had identified which of the alien workers might be willing to fight for their freedom when the time came. Deep in space, Admiral Sarah Chen Okafor commanded the largest human fleet ever assembled from the bridge of the UES Remembrance. Around her ship, 300 vessels waited in perfect formation, hidden in the shadow of a rogue planet where no sensors could detect them. "Signal from Agent Rodriguez," Communications Officer Park reported. "Mining facility Kepler-7 is ready for liberation. All security systems mapped, loyalist workers identified." Admiral Chen Okafor nodded. "Add it to the target list." "How many facilities are ready for simultaneous strikes?" 417 confirmed, Admiral. Agent teams report that local workers are prepared to assist in all locations. The numbers represented years of careful preparation. Human agents had infiltrated every level of Zephyrian society, from mining platforms to military command centers. They had spent decades earning trust, gathering intelligence, and preparing the oppressed alien species for the revolution that was coming. On the Zephyrian capital world of Hegemon Prime, Agent Maria Santos worked as a computer technician in the Planetary Defense Center. Her genetic modifications made her appear to be a Valkyrian, a species known for their technical expertise and loyalty to the Empire. For 15 years, she had maintained computer systems that controlled the planet's orbital defenses. During that time, she had carefully installed hidden programs that would activate on her command, turning the planet's own weapons against their creators. Technician Val Sarah, her supervisor, called, using her cover identity. The central core is showing minor fluctuations. Can you run diagnostics? Of course, supervisor, Maria replied, accessing the system she knew better than its designers. As she worked, her hidden programs spread deeper into the network, preparing for the day when they would reveal themselves. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy as human agents completed their preparations. They had become invisible ghosts haunting the Zephyrian Empire, gathering strength for a reckoning that their enemies couldn't imagine. Commander Zektar finally received permission to investigate the disappearances personally after 3 military transport ships vanished in the same week. His investigation ship, the IZS Vigilance, dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the coordinates where the last transport had disappeared. Full sensor sweep, he ordered. I want to know everything that happened here. The science officer worked frantically at his station. Sir, I'm detecting trace amounts of exotic particles consistent with advanced cloaking technology. Whatever took our ships had stealth capabilities beyond anything in our databases. Zektar felt a chill run down his spine. The Zephyrian Empire controlled the most advanced technology in the galaxy. They had conquered dozens of civilizations and absorbed their knowledge. What could possibly have stealth technology they didn't recognize? Sir, the communications officer interrupted. We're receiving a transmission. Origin unknown. Put it through. The main screen flickered to life, showing a figure in a sleek environmental suit standing on what appeared to be a starship bridge. The being removed its helmet, revealing a face that made Zektar's blood freeze. It was the face of a human, the species that was supposed to have been extinct for over 3,000 years. Commander Zektar, the human said, somehow knowing his name. My name is Admiral Sarah Chenokafor of the United Earth Fleet. I wanted to introduce myself before we begin. Impossible, Zektar whispered. Your species was eliminated. We cracked your world. The human smiled, but there was no warmth in the expression. You destroyed our world, Commander, but you made the mistake of leaving us alive. We've spent 3,500 years preparing for this conversation. Around the Vigilance, space seemed to ripple as dozens of human ships decloaked, their weapons trained on the Zephyrian vessel. Each ship bore the symbol of Earth, a blue and green circle that had haunted Zephyrian nightmares for generations. Your people scattered the pieces of our homeworld across space, Admiral Chenokafor continued. But humans have a saying, what goes around comes around. We've come to collect what you owe us. Zektar tried to order his weapons officer to fire, but the man's hands wouldn't move. Neither would anyone else's on the bridge. They could only watch and listen as the ghost of a dead civilization spoke to them. Don't worry, Commander. You'll live through this encounter. I want you to carry a message back to your leaders. Tell them that the children of Earth have returned. Tell them that we remember what they did. And tell them that payback is going to be very, very painful. The human ships vanished as suddenly as they had appeared, leaving the Vigilance alone in empty space. Zektar and his crew sat in stunned silence, processing the impossible truth that humanity had not only survived, but had grown strong enough to threaten the mightiest empire in the galaxy. As the Vigilance jumped to faster-than-light speed to carry word of the encounter back to Hegemon Prime, none of its crew noticed the small probe that had attached itself to their hull. The device would transmit everything it heard back to the human fleet, ensuring that Admiral Chenokafor would know exactly how the Zephyrian leadership reacted to her message. The long exile was ending. The time for hiding in shadows had passed. Soon, the galaxy would learn what happened when someone made the mistake of trying to destroy humanity. The Zephyrian High Council chamber on Hegemon Prime had never seen such chaos. Commander Zektar stood before the ruling body of the galaxy's most powerful empire, delivering a report that challenged everything they believed about their security and dominance. You're telling us that humans, a species we exterminated over 3 millennia ago, have somehow returned with a fleet capable of penetrating our defenses? High Chancellor Mortith's voice dripped with disbelief. Yes, Your Excellence. They demonstrated technology beyond our current capabilities and showed detailed knowledge of our military protocols. Zektar replied, his confidence shaken by the encounter. Counselor Velquan slammed his fist on the table. Impossible. We used planet crackers on their world. We saw it shatter into cosmic dust. No one could have survived. Apparently some did, Zektar said quietly, and they've spent the intervening centuries preparing for this moment. While the High Council debated whether to take the threat seriously, human forces across the galaxy began their coordinated assault. At exactly 1200 hours Galactic Standard Time, 417 facilities simultaneously erupted into chaos. On mining platform Kepler-7, Captain Chen Rodriguez dropped his disguise and activated the signal that began the liberation. Hidden weapons caches planted over months of careful preparation opened throughout the facility. The alien workers he had secretly organized rushed to arm themselves while Zephyrian guards scrambled to respond to attacks coming from every direction. This is Captain Rodriguez to all liberation teams, he broadcast on encrypted channels. Operation Homecoming is now active. Free your worlds. The Zephyrian supervisor Thaxon found himself facing the same worker he had questioned just days before, but now the submissive slave was pointing a military-grade plasma rifle at his chest. Worker 7742, Thaxon stammered. What is the meaning of this? My name is Captain Chen Rodriguez of the United Earth Fleet, the disguised human replied. And you are now a prisoner of war. Similar scenes played out across the mining platform as human agents revealed themselves in liberated facilities they had studied for years. The Zephyrian guards, trained to suppress unarmed workers, found themselves facing well-armed and expertly trained soldiers who knew every weakness in their defenses. In space above the platform, the transport ship that was supposed to deliver monthly supplies instead disgorged a squadron of human fighters. The sleek vessels moved with impossible grace. Their pilots trained in the zero-gravity combat techniques developed in the Broken Chain asteroids. The platform's defense turrets, controlled by computer systems that Agent Rodriguez had compromised months ago, turned on the Zephyrian patrol ships that arrived to investigate the disturbance. Within minutes, the entire facility was under human control. Across the galaxy, the pattern repeated. Human agents activated sleeper cells, compromised defense systems, and coordinated with liberated alien workers to seize control of strategic locations. The Zephyrian Empire, built on the assumption that their subjects would never dare to rebel, found itself under attack from within. On the industrial world of Manufactured Goods Complex 91, Agent David Kim had spent 15 years slowly replacing key personnel with human operatives. When the signal came, the entire production facility turned from manufacturing goods for the Empire to producing weapons for the rebellion. All Zephyrian personnel are to surrender immediately, Kim announced over the facility's communication system. Resistance will be met with deadly force. Compliance will be rewarded with fair treatment under the laws of war. Most of the Zephyrian supervisors, faced with workers who had suddenly become armed soldiers, chose surrender over futile resistance. The few who tried to fight discovered that their opponents had been training for this moment for longer than they had been alive. Admiral Sarah Chen Okafor watched the report stream in from her command ship, hidden in the shadow of a gas giant, near the Zephyrian core worlds. The liberation was proceeding ahead of schedule, with minimal casualties among the human forces and their alien allies. Admiral, Communications Officer Park reported, we're receiving surrender signals from 87 facilities. Only 12 are reporting significant resistance. What about the Zephyrian military response? Admiral Chen Okafor asked, confused and scattered. They're sending patrol ships to investigate individual incidents, but they haven't realized yet that this is a coordinated galaxy-wide assault. That would change soon enough. The Zephyrian High Command would eventually understand the scope of what was happening and begin marshalling their main battle fleets. But by then, the humans would control hundreds of strategic locations and have thousands of liberated alien workers fighting alongside them. On Hegemon Prime, High Chancellor Mortith finally grasped the magnitude of the crisis as reports flooded in from across the Empire. Mining platforms had gone silent, industrial facilities were broadcasting surrender signals, and patrol ships were encountering human warships in sectors that were supposed to be secure. How many facilities have we lost contact with? He demanded. 412 confirmed, Your Excellence, reported General Kextar, brother of Commander Zektar, and the number is climbing every hour. Deploy the 3rd Battle Fleet to restore order, Morteth commanded. Show these humans what happens when someone challenges the hegemony. General Kextar hesitated. Your Excellence, our intelligence suggests this is more than a simple raid. The humans appear to have infiltrated our society at every level. They know our protocols, our defense patterns, even our communication codes. Then we'll create new codes and new patterns, the High Chancellor snapped. We've ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. We're not going to be defeated by the ghosts of a dead civilization. But as the 3rd Battle Fleet moved to engage the human forces, they discovered that their enemies had advantages beyond superior infiltration. The human ships used technology that seemed to violate known laws of physics, appearing and disappearing at will, coordinating their attacks with perfect precision. Captain Tolivar of the IZS Dominance found his ship facing 3 human vessels that shouldn't have been able to outfight a Zephyrian battlecruiser. But the enemy ships moved like they were extensions of their pilots' wills, dodging weapons fire that should have been impossible to avoid. All weapons, concentrate fire on the lead ship, he ordered, watching as his gunners tried to target vessels that seemed to phase in and out of normal space. The human ships responded by launching swarms of small fighters that shouldn't have been able to carry enough firepower to threaten a capital ship. But these weren't normal fighters. They were self-replicating drones that multiplied faster than they could be destroyed. Within minutes, the Dominance was surrounded by hundreds of enemy craft, each one small enough to slip through the gaps in the ship's defenses. Captain Tolivar watched in horror as his supposedly invincible vessel was torn apart by attacks coming from every direction. This is Captain Tolivar to all Zephyrian forces, he broadcast on emergency channels. The humans possess technology beyond our current understanding. They're not just survivors, they're something new. As his ship's hull began to buckle under the concentrated assault, Tolivar realized that the Zephyrian Empire was facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. These humans weren't trying to conquer territory or demand tribute. They were fighting for something much more dangerous, justice. The liberation continued across the galaxy as human forces struck with coordinated precision. Every attack was carefully planned to minimize civilian casualties while maximizing psychological impact. The message was clear. The children of Earth had returned, and they remembered every detail of what had been done to their world. On the agricultural world of Food Production Facility 23, liberated workers watched in amazement as human soldiers distributed food and medical supplies to alien families who had been living in slavery for generations. "Why are you helping us?" asked a young Krillian mother, holding her child close as human medics treated the malnourishment that was common among slave populations. Captain Maria Santos, still wearing the genetic disguise that had allowed her to infiltrate Zephyrian society, knelt down to the child's level. "Because everyone deserves to be free," she said simply. "Your people suffered under their rule just like ours did." Word of the human liberation campaign spread faster than Zephyrian forces could suppress it. Slave species across the galaxy began to hope for the first time in millennia that their oppression might finally end. As reports of the uprising reached every corner of the empire, a single message began appearing on communication networks, written in the ancient languages of dozens of conquered species. "The children of Earth remember. The children of Earth have returned. Freedom is coming. The galaxy would never be the same." The battle for the Sol system began with a sight that struck fear into the hearts of every Zephyrian commander. Earth was rebuilding itself. Admiral Sarah Chen Okafor stood on the bridge of the UES Remembrance, watching as massive human engineering ships used quantum manipulation technology to slowly pull together the scattered fragments of humanity's homeworld. The process would take months to complete, but the psychological impact was immediate and devastating. "Sir," Communications Officer Park reported, "we're receiving surrender requests from 14 Zephyrian installations throughout the system. They're asking for terms." "Standard terms," Admiral Chen Okafor replied without taking her eyes off the growing sphere of rock and metal that had once been Earth. "Lay down arms, release all prisoners, and prepare for judgment under galactic law. Supreme Commander Zektar, recently promoted after his brother's death and the Third Fleet disaster, watched the impossible scene from the command station built within what had once been Earth's moon. Around him, his staff officers struggled to understand how the humans were accomplishing something that violated every known law of physics. How are they doing this? He demanded from his science advisor. Unknown, Supreme Commander. Our sensors detect massive gravitational manipulation on a scale we've never seen before. They're literally rebuilding a planet from cosmic debris. Zektar studied the tactical display showing the human fleet. 3,000 ships of various sizes surrounded the reforming Earth, each one contributing to the reconstruction effort while simultaneously maintaining perfect defensive formations. It was a display of technological capability that made Zephyrian achievements look primitive by comparison. "What's our defensive status?" he asked. "The Sol system defensive grid is still operational," his tactical officer replied. "But sir, we've detected human infiltrators throughout our installations. Some of our own people may be working against us, that was true." Agent Maria Santos had spent years preparing for this moment, and when the signal came, she activated the programs hidden deep within the defense network's computers. Orbital weapons platforms that should have been firing on human ships instead turned their guns on each other. "This is Agent Santos to all human operatives," she broadcast on secure channels. "The Sol system defense grid is compromised. Begin Phase 2 operations." Across the system, human agents who had spent decades in deep cover revealed themselves. On asteroid mining platforms and orbital shipyards, even aboard Zephyrian warships, humans dropped their disguises and seized control of critical systems. Captain David Kim, who had infiltrated a Zephyrian destroyer as an engineering officer, found himself in control of the ship's reactor just as the final battle began. Instead of supporting the Zephyrian fleet, his vessel suddenly began jamming enemy communications and targeting friendly ships. "This is Captain Kim to the Zephyrian crew," he announced over the ship's internal communications. "You have two choices. Surrender now and be treated fairly, or resist and face the consequences." The Zephyrian captain tried to regain control of his ship, but Kim's preparations were too thorough. Every critical system had been compromised, every security protocol rewritten. The destroyer was now effectively a human vessel flying behind enemy lines. Supreme Commander Zektar realized that his defensive position was collapsing from within. "All ships fall back to the lunar fortress. We'll make our stand there." But even the fortress wasn't safe. Captain Rodriguez, who had commanded the liberation of countless facilities across the galaxy, led a team of human special forces through maintenance tunnels that connected the lunar base to hidden landing bays. "Remember," he told his soldiers as they prepared to breach the command center, "we're not here for revenge. We're here for justice. Minimize casualties and protect any surrendering personnel." The assault on the lunar fortress was swift and precise. Human soldiers, enhanced by centuries of genetic modification and trained on the harshest worlds in the galaxy, moved through the facility with unstoppable efficiency. Zephyrian defenders found themselves facing opponents who could survive in vacuum, resist energy weapons, and coordinate their attacks with perfect teamwork. Supreme Commander Zektar made his final stand in the Fortress Command Center, surrounded by the few officers who had remained loyal to the end. When the blast doors finally gave way, he found himself facing Admiral Chen Okafor herself. "Supreme Commander," she said, her voice calm despite the chaos of battle around them. "I'm Admiral Sarah Chen Okafor of the United Earth Fleet. You're under arrest for crimes against humanity and genocide." Zektar looked at the human woman who had orchestrated the downfall of his empire. She was smaller than he had expected, but there was something in her eyes that spoke of determination forged over millennia. "How?" he asked simply. "How did you survive? How did you become strong enough to defeat us?" Admiral Chen Okafor gestured toward the view screen, which showed Earth slowly reforming in the distance. "You destroyed our world, Commander, but you made the mistake of leaving us alive. Humans don't just survive. We adapt, we evolve, and we remember." "We were following standard protocol," Zektar protested. "Your species was classified as a potential threat. We had to act." "You chose to commit genocide rather than try to coexist," the Admiral replied. "That choice has consequences. Now you'll face judgment for what you've done." As Zektar was led away in restraints, the final Zephyrian resistance in the Sol system collapsed. The orbital defense platforms had been turned against their creators. The lunar fortress was under human control, and the reforming Earth served as a symbol of humanity's return to the galaxy. But the humans didn't stop with military victory. As Earth continued to rebuild itself, human medical teams began treating wounded Zephyrian soldiers. Human engineers helped repair damaged facilities. Human translators ensured that surrender negotiations were conducted fairly. Dr. James Park, descendant of the officer who had served during Earth's final days, worked alongside Zephyrian medics to save the lives of soldiers from both sides. "War is ending," he told a confused Zephyrian surgeon. "Now begins the hard work of building peace." Across the galaxy, the news of humanity's victory spread faster than official communications. The Zephyrian Empire, which had seemed invincible for 3,000 years, had fallen to the descendants of a species they thought they had exterminated. But more importantly, the liberated worlds discovered that the humans weren't interested in conquest or revenge. Instead of replacing Zephyrian rule with human domination, they established the Galactic Confederation, a democratic alliance where every species had an equal voice. Captain Maria Santos, finally able to drop her decades-long disguise, addressed the first session of the Confederation Council from the rebuilt chambers on Earth. Representatives from hundreds of species, many seeing their homeworlds free for the first time in millennia, listened as she outlined humanity's vision for the future. "We didn't fight this war to become your new rulers," she said. "We fought it to ensure that no species would ever again face the choice between slavery and extinction. The galaxy belongs to all of us." The rebuilt Earth became the capital of this new confederation, but it was deliberately kept as a memorial, as well as a seat of government. The scars from its destruction were preserved in museums and monuments, serving as a reminder of what could happen when fear and hatred guided galactic policy. Former Supreme Commander Zektar, serving his sentence as a worker in one of the reconstruction projects, found himself laboring alongside humans and aliens to build something better than what had come before. At first, he had expected brutal treatment as revenge for his role in the genocide. Instead, he discovered that humans meant what they said about justice rather than vengeance. He was fed well, treated fairly, and given meaningful work that contributed to rebuilding what his people had destroyed. "Why don't you hate us?" he asked Admiral Chen Okafor during one of her visits to the work sites. "Because hate is what caused this war in the first place," she replied. "Your people were afraid of what humans might become, so they tried to destroy us. We learned during our exile that fear and hatred only create more suffering." She gestured toward the work crews, where humans, former Zephyrians, and dozens of other species labored together to build a new civilization. "This is what we're fighting for now. A galaxy where differences are celebrated instead of feared." As the years passed, the Galactic Confederation grew stronger. Human technology, shared freely with all member species, helped heal worlds damaged by millennia of exploitation. Former slave species rediscovered their cultures and histories. Even many Zephyrians found new purpose in the democratic society that replaced their empire. Earth itself became a symbol of hope rather than revenge. The planet had been murdered and then reborn, scarred but beautiful, serving as proof that even the greatest tragedies could be overcome through determination and cooperation. Standing in her office in the rebuilt United Nations building, Admiral Chen Okafor looked out at the blue skies and green fields that her ancestors had thought lost forever. Children played in parks where monuments reminded them of the price of hatred and the value of peace.